siblings. Jadis chakram janam tisho navashwan vidhyadevacha vaikari kanindrihani manomatra gunastraya etad vichitram sahajivakala svabhava karmashaya linga vedam sunostanao vicha vidarikashay rajam saham sabhatmanam abapashankam. So you can repeat. Sa Mother Yashoda Tatra within the wide open mouth of Krishna. Gadrashe saw Vishwam, the whole universe. Jagat, moving entities. Stachnu, maintenance of non-moving entities. Cha, and Kam, the sky. Dishaha, the directions. Satri, with the mountains. Dvipa, islands. Abdi, and oceans. Vugolam, the surface of the earth. Savayu, with the blowing winds. Agni, fire. Indu, the moon. Karakam, stars. Jyoti Chakram, the planetary systems. Jalam, water. Tejaha, light. Lavashvan, outer space. Viat, the sky. Eva, also. Cha, and. Vaikarikani, creation by transformation of ahankara. Indriyani, the senses. Manaha, mind. Matraha, sense perceptions. Gunatrayaha, the three material qualities. Sattva, rajas, and tamas. Etat, all these. Vichitram, varieties. Saha, along with. Jivakala, the duration of life of all living entities. Swabhava, natural instinct. Karma ashaya, resultant action and desire for material enjoyment. Linga Vedam, varieties of bodies according to desire. Shunotana, in the body of her son. Vikshat, sing. Vidarita asye, within the wide open mouth. Vrajam, Vrindavana Dham, Nanda Maharaj's place. Sa'atmana, along with herself. Avappa, was struck. Shankam, with all doubts and wonder. So translation. When Krishna opened his mouth wide by the order of Mother Yashoda, she saw within his mouth all moving and non-moving entities, outer space, in all the directions, along with mountains, islands, oceans, the surface of the earth, the blowing wind, fire, the moon, and the stars. She saw the planetary systems, water, light, air, sky, and creation by transformation of Ahankara. She also saw the senses, the mind, sense perception, and the three qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance. She saw the time allotted for the living entity. She saw a natural instinct and the reactions of karma. And she saw desires and different varieties of bodies, moving and non-moving. Seeing all these aspects of the cosmic manifestation along with herself and Vrindavanada, she became doubtful and fearful of her son's nature. So, you can repeat. When Krishna opened his mouth wide, by the order of Mother Yashoda, she saw within his mouth all moving and non-moving entities, outer space in all directions, along with mountains, islands, oceans, and the surface of the earth, the blowing wind, fire, the moon, and the stars. She saw the planetary systems, water, light, air, sky, and creation, by transformation of Ahankara. She also saw the senses, the mind, sense perception, and the three qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance. She saw the time allotted for the living entities. She saw a natural instinct and the reactions of karma. And she saw desires and different varieties of bodies, moving and non-moving. Seeing all these aspects of the cosmic manifestation, along with herself in Vrindavan, she became doubtful and fearful of her son's nature. So purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All the cosmic manifestations that exist on the gross and subtle elements, as well as the means of their agitation, the three gunas, the living entity, creation, maintenance, annihilation, and everything going on in the external energy of the Lord. All this comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda. Everything is within the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, the 9th chapter, text 10. Maya yakshena prakriti suvite sa characharam. Everything in the material nature, prakriti, works under his control. Because all these manifestations come from Govinda, they could all be visible within the mouth of Govinda. Quite astonishingly, Mother Yashoda was afraid because of intense maternal affection. She could not believe that within the mouth of her son such things could appear. Yes, she saw them, and therefore she was struck with fear and wonder. Om Gana Timranda Shah Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So also the Acharyas mentions in discussing this particular verse that many of these things she saw not only in the mouth, but she looked in the mouth to the stomach. She saw in the stomach of the Supreme Personality of God. It's an interesting discussion. So this is the nature of God. Obviously, from reading this, we understand that he doesn't have a material body. As Krishna says in Gita, avajananti mam mudha manushim. So those who think that Krishna's body and form is material, they're called mudas. Of course, those of you who don't understand Sanskrit, that means in common language, ASS. They're asses, you know. Ajopi San Ishwaram Praptum Swamidistaya Samavanya Maya. So when Krishna comes, actually we use the word incarnation, but really that's not right precisely, if you look at the actual word. Because incarnate, the word carne means basically flesh. Just like if you're from South America, if you go to a carnicero, you shouldn't go to a carnicero. That means you go to a butcher. So incarnate means to take the flesh, basically, or reincarnate means to take the flesh again. So we are reincarnating and incarnating because we're taking the flesh, from one lifetime to another. And we're actually changing the flesh even within this lifetime, as described by Krishna in the Gita. From boyhood or girlhood to youth to old age. So just like, I can look at my body and see I've changed the flesh. It doesn't look the same as I did when I came here to New Goloka in 1982, flesh. Anyway, as they say, the flesh is weak. So we've changed, but Krishna, he doesn't really change the flesh. He comes in his same transcendental body. However, Krishna's transcendental body is so amazing, it's inconceivable, it's unlimited. So it can manifest in a variety of ways. It can manifest, I don't want to say it, let's use the word he. Okay. He can manifest because if we use the word it, that indicates that there's some disparity or duality between Krishna and his body. Just like you say, you have a body. And, my hand, just like Prabhupada would give the example sometimes. One time he went to a school to talk to very young people, and he says, point out where your hand is, point out where your eye is, and then point out you. The kids were all bewildered, Where's your hand? Hand. Where's your eye? There. Where's your mouth? There. Okay, where are you? Who? Eating, meaning, money, mo. Don't know where I am. So anyway, so there's this duality in the material world. We are different from the body. And we're changing the body, not only from one lifetime to another, but even within this lifetime. We've all changed, just like I've seen me changing, I've seen Aperta changing. I haven't seen Tristan changing. He looks the same as he did like 30 years ago. So, he's found the fountain of youth in Florida.
It'll all happen at once.
Yeah. Actually connected with Ponce de Leon.
I did stop by.
He did. Ponce de Leon was the person who was trying to discover the fountain of youth in Florida. Instead, he discovered a bunch of old people in Miami Beach. So anyway, we're all changing our bodies from boy to youth, and then at the end of this life we change our bodies again. So that's actually incarnation. We are incarnations, and we are reincarnations, and re and re and re again and again and again. That's called samsara, which means like, actually you can picture it as like an 8 on its side, which means infinity again and again. Like another description is punas charvita charvanam. We're always chewing the already chewed. In other words, we're trying so many times to enjoy this world through many different incarnations, and as that famous song goes, can't get no satisfaction. You haven't been able to get any satisfaction. So, all right, let's get back to Krishna. But Krishna, really the word incarnation, even though we use it, because that's a common word, but technically speaking, if you analyze the word, it's not really appropriate. The appropriate word is avatar. Avatar means Krishna has many avatars. He descends, and another verse in the Brahma Samhita, Dvaita Chutanadi Vedanta Rupamaju Puranam Purusham Naviyoganam Cha Veda Ishudurva Durva Bhakto Bhakto Govindam Nadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That all these different avatars of Krishna, they're all the same person, and that's amazing. They're all the same person, and they do things that nobody in any material body could do. For example, here we have Krishna opening his mouth, and his mother looking in his mouth, and she's seen all the universes. Like Prabhupada would sometimes say that if someone declares themselves to be God, they should be able to do something like that. You know, just like there's many people, as Prabhupada mentions, who come from India. Of course, not so many now, but there used to be in the 1960s and 70s, who were God or declared themselves to be God. And Prabhupada said, you know, just let them lift, go over downhill or fly around the air, or open their mouths and let's see. Let us see all the universes and the mind and the sense perception and the qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Let's see it, you know. Instead of open their mouth, you just see a bunch of cavities. And bad breath, you know. Isn't it? I mean, this is so silly, you know. It says, I'm God, you're God, we're all God. Okay, open your mouth. Yuck. So Krishna, it's a body, it's amazing, because his body, and it's described here, it's described in the Gita, Maya Tatamidam Sarvam Jagadavyakta Murtinamastani Sarvamutane Aham Teshvavastata, it's from that chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that by Krishna, he's pervading everywhere. Maya Tatam Idam Sarvam. Sarvam means everything. Jagat Avyakta Murtinam. In his unmanifested form, he's everything, pervading everything. Matstani Sarvamutane Aham Teshvavastata. Although everybody, Matstani means to be within. There's our Sanskrit expert. Matstani Sarvabhutane. I am, all the living entities are within me, right? Sanskrit expert. But I am not in them. You know, you got all these like things that are impossible. Krishna is everywhere, and everything's within him, but everything is not within him simultaneously. You know, so how do you make about it? You know, because God, the nature of God is a chincha, and he can, in his body and his personality, he reconciles all impossible contradictions. And he can do everything. Just like sometimes people ask the question of, can God make an immovable object and then move it? Of course, that is a contradiction to say something like that. You know, obviously it's immovable, then, but God could do that. He could do the basic things. And so here we're hearing amazing things. Other pastimes we hear about amazing things. For example, let's take the pastime of Lord Vamana. That's another, what is it, incarnation. That's another avatar of Krishna. Same body. Same body. So he's born, he appears as a dwarf Brahmana. You know, just real small. That's a dwarf. And then he interacts with this king, Bali Maharaj, and in order to take 3 steps which Bali Maharaj offered to him, he takes his first step and takes it, you know, as a dwarf. And then he takes his first step and he goes over the whole earth planet. I mean, who could do that? Can any of these bogus gods from India, Satyasai Boga, or can they take 1 foot and just like step over the whole earth planet? Next step. All right, you know, that's good enough. That's pretty wonderful. Next step, he just like kicks a hole in the universe. You know, there's many universes. This is actually interesting. And the Vedic conception nowadays, of course, in science, they're just talking about the multiverses, right? Multiverses. Quantum mechanics, multiverses. Of course, they have a different conception of the multiverses. They say that in every multiverse, there's you. There's a Tulsi, there's a Drishta, there's a me. And each decision we make in life, we split off into a different universe. That's what they say. I'm not saying that's true. That's not my philosophy. And so that somewhere there's a Krishna Goswami who decided to go skydiving today. So that's not true. Anyway, but there are multiverses, and the Vedic literatures talk about, like, there's unlimited universes, and they talk about things that the science is just talking about nowadays. For example, the Big Bang Theory. You know how there was a little nothing, there was no time or no space, and all of a sudden, boom, we get time, space, gravity, and all the different things like that from nothing. And actually the Vedas talk about that it comes out as like little seeds out of the body. That's another amazing thing about the body of the Supreme Personality, God. You know, we were talking about Lord Brahma today. Let's talk about another avatar of Krishna, you know, the Mahavishnu. And he is so amazing that he breathes out, and instead of just like bad breath coming, like we mentioned in Bogus Gods, or perspiration, instead of just like, you know, some smelly perspiration, then all the universes come out of his body. It's seed form. This is like the big, right, previous to the Big Bang. Like infinitesimal, they're infinitesimal. And then he looks at them and injects them by his glance, because his glance, the glance of God, is not simply, you know, when you look at something, you know, when they say looks could kill. Well, you know, if I had a glance that I could kill people, there'd be a lot of dead people by now. So they say if looks could kill, you know. So, no, but God, the nature of God is he can do anything. His body is so amazing, or he is so amazing, because there's a difference between him and his body, is so amazing that Angani, Ashar, Shakalan, Driya, Dri, Timanti, he can do anything with any part of his body. With his glance, he can, I guess, like, pick up the whole universe. With his glance, he can eat. Because it's a spiritual body. It's a body, what, Satchidananda, eternity, bliss, and knowledge. It's not limited. We're limited to different things that we can do with our body. Because it's not Satchidananda, it's the opposite. Instead of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, it's just like, temporary. Ignorance, and misery. Tell me all about it. So it's amazing. He just looks at these little, what are the proto matter. Let's say proto matter, proto energy. That means before you get to that matter energy. And then there's the Big Bang. Boom! And not only one Big Bang. There's Big Bangs all over the place. You know, there's like thousands, billions, trillions, unlimited Big Bang. Boom, 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 boom. It's like, you know, like firecrackers going off all over the place. And all the universes are expanding. And then also with his glance, and it's amazing, the body of God. I mean, if it wasn't amazing, he wouldn't be God. So, and then he looks at all the universe as they're expanding, and then he enters into each one, he looks at and enters into each one as another avatar. Simultaneously, all these things are going on. It's not that he stops being one avatar when he becomes another avatar. Avatar, the word means descent. So he looks in the universe, and then he becomes another avatar. And as he looks, another thing that happens in that glance, not only is the explosion in the universe, the Big Bang happening, but all the living entities are coming out of his eyes. That's us. Aikshita is the Sanskrit word. They're all coming out of his eyes. Into each and every universe of him, just like we're injected into the universe through his eyes, because previously we were lying dormant in his body. We were there in the previous creation. Anyway, the creations are happening on a regular cycle. Bhutva, bhutva, praliyate. So we're lying, sleeping, dormant, like that suspended animation in his body, and then we're injected into the material energy. And then he enters into the material energy, into each universe, and does his thing in the same transcendental body with the same person. And he gives birth to the first person in the creation, Lord Brahma, from his umbilical cord, his navel. That's where ladies give birth to, through an umbilical cord. No, they nurture the kids with the umbilical cord. And then he enters in, and then the same person simultaneously goes into everyone's heart, or is in everyone's heart, and he's giving them remembrance about what they were thinking about in their last life. Let's say in last life they wanted to be a musician, play the bass guitar, play the bass guitar. Then Krishna, in the heart, he actually gives you remembrance of that with deja vu, Prabhu. And then he's like, oh, bass guitar. I'm supposed to do that. Boom, 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 boom. Like that. So anyway, it's amazing. All right. Anyway, so somehow we started talking about Mahavishnu, Garbhodeshwari Vishnu, Shiradashwari Vishnu. That's one thing. And then we were talking about Vamanante. He stepped over the whole the universe, kicked a hole. Let the scientists figure out how someone would kick a hole in the universal shell. And then there was nowhere else to go. And of course, we know the story is that he put his foot on Bali Maharaj, didn't crush him actually. So all these things in the transcendental body. It's amazing. And then you have other avatars, such as the Matsya avatar. Matsya means fish. So he appears, the same person, and he's not different from his body. He is his body. We are not our body. He appears as a fish. Not only is a fish, but a small fish, little fish. And then he expands and becomes the size of a fish pond, and then a well, and then a lake, and he keeps expanding. And then finally, even the ocean's not big enough for him. And then, that's the Noah story. Anyway, so, it's quite amazing. Who can understand these things? Ananta. Ananta means unlimited. It's a chincha. It's inconceivable. How Krishna could be inside of it. And Bhagavad Gita, just a few words from our sponsor, the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita talks about this. And we already quoted this verse, the next verse is Nachamat Stani Bhutali Pachame Yogamaishvaram Bhuta Brinnach Bhuta Sto Mamatma Bhuta Bhavana. He says, and Krishna says, yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence, although I am the maintainer of all the living entities and although I am everywhere, I am not part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. So he's everywhere, but he's not part of this material creation. And then the next verse, understand is the mighty wind blowing everywhere, rest always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. So this 9th chapter is very important. Prabhupada actually here makes reference to 9:10, which is really important. Maya Jakshena Prakriti Sute Sacharam Hetumanayana Kontya Chanaprivari. Today, the material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction as son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created again and again. Anyway, so that's the nature of God. So then the question arises, we only have 2 minutes left. How can people love someone who's doing all those things? I mean, you can be amazed, sure, just like you see the stars in the sky and everything going on. Wow, awe is not love, right? You know, awe is not love. You know, just I get awed by a lot of things. Like the first time I went into a Airbus 380. You know Airbus 380? Big plane, the biggest commercial. I was awed. I didn't love it, but I was awed. So how do you love God? Because everyone's talking about loving God. So in spite of all those things, or in addition to all these things, what Krishna enjoys the most is the personal relationship with people, with other living entities, that's us, in the spiritual world. So it's the statement in the Brahma Samhita is Goloka Bhuta, that he's everywhere in one sense and does all these amazing things, but really he remains home in Vrindavan, and then he forgets about all the amazing things he does so he can engage in loving exchanges, because that's what God loves more than anything else. Just like, and the example Prabhupada gave was that once upon a time there was this president of the United States. His name was Kennedy. That's when presidents were kinder, gentler, and told the truth. Anyway, so some big ambassador or whatever from another country came to see him. And his assistant said, you can't go in right now to see the president. And they said, why can't we see him? He said, he's busy right now. They go, oh, he's busy doing some official business. So the guy looked in the door and he saw he was playing like being piggyback ride with his son. And this is what he was enjoying, more than being president of the United States. So, in other words, we can develop a personal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead when, as he appears in his original transcendental form as Krishna. And what he enjoys most is loving relationships. Not all this business of creating the material world and all that other stuff. His real enjoyment is Ras, or having relationships with us. And you can read about his transcendental nature in Krishna book and in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, I know that's a little confusing. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, good job.